Hello everyone and welcome to another video and welcome to our reviews. That feels such a long time, but anyways, I have gotten a very tasty review for you today, and that is the Range Rover Velar. So this is the Range Rover Velar P250 S edition, the specific model of it. Now the Range Rover has a few more models in the lineup, and this is one of the most confusing model, I guess, because you have the Range Rover Evoque, you have the full-fledged Range Rover, and then you have the Velar version. But in today's video, let's have a quick walk around of the exteriors and the interiors, and let's go for a drive after that. So let's start from the front. You get the LED headlight cluster and the standard Range Rover grille. If you see these days, this is the Range Rover grille that you would find pretty much in every single model, from the Evoque to the bigger Range Rovers, and the Range Rover badging out here, and a relatively very roundish and a sort of big bumper out here around with some surrounds around it, and also the Land Rover badging out here. And also at the bottom you would find this plastic bit. Again, this has holes in them, and also this thing is very plasticky. I'm afraid to report that, because there are lots of plastic bits that have been used, and I get the fact that this is the mid version of the Velar, but then still, I mean, this was something which they could have just replaced it with something like a colored bumper or something that would have looked nicer. But otherwise you don't get the fog lamps or anything else with this, so there is a relatively very sort of smooth surface that you would see in the front. On the sides, first thing that you would notice is that this car doesn't have a lot of height. Like, if you can see, it comes right near somewhere between my shoulder and the neck, the height of it. But you get the 19-inch 5-spoke alloy rims, and to be honest, these look quite simple, but I don't know, maybe these are for the off-roading so that you can take this car very easily. Also, there is not a lot of bit of ground clearance, if you notice that. Also, you get the side mirrors which have the blind spot warning system, and also they are power foldable. And then this really nice added feature which has been introduced in the Velar, which is these handles which go automatically inside, and then they flush into the body so that they look flat, but whenever you want to open them, you can press the button and can open it. So otherwise the design is relatively very similar to the Range Rovers that you are used to. Also, there is this sloping roof on the side profile, if you can notice that also, and then these tail lights which merge all the way inside onto the side also. And there is one more cool bit, which is when you open these doors, you would find a logo inside which has the Range Rover model, the Velar inscription being made onto it. By the way, there is a very similar logo like this on my channel also. If you look at the bottom, that's a subscription button. So if you like these videos, then you can subscribe to my channel so that you never miss any video updates from my channel. When you open these doors, there is the doors have this plastic cladding at the bottom also. Now these plastic claddings actually look not on this car, to be honest, because they would have rather just given something else, like maybe a blacked out version or something, but then just plain plastic bits look really, really cheap. I don't know. But again, they stretch all the way till the bottom so that your inner frame, the chassis frame, is always protected when you go off-roading, so that you never get your pants dirty. So this car has been kindly given to me by an owner, and I'm really thankful for that. So continuing at the back, you get this long sort of Range Rover badging and a strip, and also these lights that go all the way till the side. And also there is this spoiler at the back, but it has gotten this long LED tail light which has been put inside it. And if you see the glass at the back, the rear glass, that is pretty small, and in fact the visibility is also pretty less from inside when you see it from the rear view mirror. And continuing, you would get the Velar P250 S badge, and I mentioned before, this is the P250 S. Then there are like 5 different models: the P250 S, which is this one, P250 SE, P300, P340 and P380. Now these are the different specs that you can get. And also there is a V8 version which is a supercharged engine, and then that's pretty much the top of the line, but the figures of which I'll be putting them later on the when we go on a drive. So at the bottom again you would see this sort of black patch. Now this is something what I was mentioning before, sort of a glossy plastic which looks really nice and elegant on a car like this. And also this again strip of plastic which continues from the side out here. One more reason maybe to give the plastic is because if you take this car for off-roading, then it's just easier to replace these plastic trims instead of having the colored ones. But nonetheless, this looks really nice along with the parking sensors that you have. And there is also one camera system out here, the reversing camera system. In terms of storage space, you would find ample of it. So again, relatively flat so that it is easier to remove and put your luggage. Also there is one scruff plate which has been provided out here, the additional scruff plates inside which are metal ones, and a very sort of relatively flat bay in the back, along with the spare wheel which is again your 19-inch full size spare wheel. That is pretty good. Also you would get some hanging points in the back so that you can put your shopping bags or anything. And also there is a 12-volt power socket, and also there's a boot separator that you would get, that's a parcel separator also. And these seats are collapsible in a ratio of 60:40, but in order to do that you would have to go in the front. So let me demonstrate you that. Oh, right. Yes, and now I have to go to the other side. God, they should have really given a button out here in the back. There you go. Now we have a pretty long boot in the back, which is pretty good, but there is also a step in between where the seat and the boot actually meets. So maybe a luggage, putting them would be a bit of a task, but not really much of a bother. Well, step inside and you are greeted with a mixture of plastic, leather and some quality plastics. Now I'll explain where exactly will you find all of that. So starting off with the basic plastic quality, it's pretty good. Like it's a premium quality plastic, soft touch plastics everywhere. But here's where there is not the good bit of the plastic which has been used, which is out here on top of this, and also on the side, and also some of it at the bottom of the door which has been used. But on the side also, as I mentioned, there is on the glove box, and everywhere that you look below your eye level you would find that sort of plastic. And also in between you would find this leather which has this nice sort of diamond design in them, which looks really nice. And then there is this plastic trim in between the glossy bit, again that also looks pretty cool. But then the AC vents are pretty small in fact, and actually when you switch on the AC you would actually feel them also like working at a really less capacity. But I don't know, maybe it was just me, or maybe I didn't put the AC at the full fan speed. But continuing with the steering wheel, you have a mixture of again leather and plastic bits, but the one in the center where the Range Rover has been put, that has like really like a simple sort of cool plastic. I wish they had put some quality bit out there instead, like a beige color. Right side you would find the cruise controls, and on your left side you would find the media controls, your infotainment controls as well. And also the cruise control is an adaptive cruise control along with the paddle shifts that you would get. There is also a lane assist feature that you would get, and also this car has this knob to adjust the steering wheel, so you have to turn it and then you can do the tilt and also the telescopic, all of that. So you can adjust and then you have to lock it in. So there is this dial which you have to get used to. A very interesting feature is the parking brake, because it has been put next to like under the dashboard on the left side of it. So like you would usually find the parking brake, the electronic parking brake, this is so electronic parking brake to be put somewhere in between in the center console, but it has been put out here. Now in the dashboard you would get a 12.3-inch multi-informational display which has your dials on both the sides, and also a screen in the middle which can be customized to show anything. And then there are finer settings also, which you can change to show you whatever information you want, your trip information, your navigations, your media. So these dual touch screens that you see are both 10-inch touch screens, LED touch screens, and the one on top, if you see, has been merged with the dashboard to match with the angle. But do not worry, this can also be it takes a little bit of a struggle to get them into that angle, so you can make it flat, and whenever you want to use it, you can just keep it in this position, and then whenever you don't, you can slide it back and let it merge into the dashboard. Now the bottom screen has all your vehicle controls and also the aircon controls, and also these two dials which have been provided on both the sides. So one of the dial acts as a terrain selector, where you can select anything, whichever mode you want to put your car into, so you can do that. And the other dial is for controlling the aircon, so you can set the temperature, and also there is a button inside the touchscreen which lets you select the fan speed also. Now again, I am not a massive fan, but this is somewhere in between of the touch screen controls and the physical controls. There is one physical dial which is pretty good to set the temperature, but if you want to change the fan speed, you have to again go into the system to change the fan speed. Again, coming to the infotainment system, the infotainment system lags a little bit, like the response is slightly slow, but then there is a lot of feature which has been given inside it, and also it's a very simple, easy to use infotainment screen, and that is what I really like. Both the screens are pretty glossy, and sometimes they are like fingerprint magnet. In terms of connectivity, you would get Apple CarPlay, Bluetooth, Android Auto, and also there are a lot of inbuilt control apps which you can use to control the car also. And then there is, at the bottom, you would get all these options to control your phone calls, your navigation directly, which you can go in. Again, the navigation maps are pretty good, but then they are a little slow, which is what I found. Whichever screen you look at, the quality of it is pretty amazing, like the dual screen that has been provided in the center console, or the multi-informational display that you see in the dashboard. All of the screens are super crisp and clear, and it is easier to read everything, all the information. And also the graphics on them is very simple and also bright and colorful, but it's not always in your eye where it is disturbing while you are driving. So this car comes with a 10-speaker Meridian music system. Now these are optional extras that you can put, so this car has been fitted with those optional extras. You can also go up to 22 speakers, like that is like I think the ultra luxurious sound system that you can put inside this car, and all of them are mounted inside the door cards and onto the dashboard. It is a small volume dial. Now that I found to be a little smaller than usual. Again, it's got this rubber sort of border around it, which I feel they should have just replaced it with something else, like an aluminium sort of dial or something. In fact, all the three dials, but then I get it's maybe to do with the fact that this car may go off-roading, and then which is why they have been given to last. So there are various options at the bottom where you can, those are capacitive touch buttons, where you can use them to switch off the traction control and also the hill hold assist, which you can switch on. And then there is this really iconic Range Rover gear changing knob, which comes out when you start the car, and then you can select the gears. So this gear selector is pretty much visible in every single Range Rover that you see. Then in terms of storage space, you would find fairly decent amount of storage, but not very big, where you can put like a liter of bottle in both the door cards. And also there is a fancy one, so there are two cup holders out here in the center console. You can press this Land Rover button which has been given on it, and it just opens up in a very elegant way to just show the sort of luxury inside that has been put into this car. So again, in terms of other storage, you would find a glove box which is pretty tiny. I mean, one single car booklet is enough to fill it with. That's about it. And also there is this two option actually, so you can either open it from the passenger side or the driver side, the center armrest which has been provided, or you can open both. Now in terms of connectivity or charging, you also have two USB ports which are inside the center console, and then there is also a 12-volt power socket. The seats are leather seats with this beige sort of color and white stitching, and again the seats are perforated seats, but then they are not the ventilated seats, so they are just there for the design. They are 8-way electronically adjustable driver and the passenger seat, but the comfort level is a bit hard, I found, because even though they are leather seats, and again they look pretty thick by the way, but then when you sit on it, it feels somewhat like harder than the usual seats that I have sat on. Bear in mind, like just the normal cars that I have sat into, for which this car feels a little bit on the harder side. You get a panoramic sunroof. Now the panoramic sunroof is actually just a way to say that there is a roof, but in reality it's just a panoramic glass which has been given for which you can just open this cover, and that's about it. You would just get the huge panoramic glass which has the UV protection on it. All down to the specs, I guess, which you can spec this car with. So this car has been spec'd like this, where you have the full glass view. Again, it gives a gigantic look when you sit inside and look and just stare outside from the glass from here. That way it's pretty nice, and even the rear passengers can enjoy the view, by the way. Now in the back, things are slightly congested, to be honest, because this seat is not all the way behind where I am usually driving, but there is respectable amount of leg room and also headroom, even though the roof is slanting in the back. Again, if you notice from the camera also, this whole panoramic sunroof is extending all the way till my head, and also when I look from top of this, it's amazing what a view you can get while you are on a drive, or if there is a scenery around, and then you can just gaze through the roof. In the back also you would find the mixture of plastic and leather materials and this aluminum door handle which has been provided, and there is like a mixture of that. And also you get the aircon control in the back, the dual air conditioning control in the back, where individual passenger can control their own AC controls. And also there are vents, there are 4 vents, 2 in the door frames and 2 in the center. So the middle row of seat is relatively flat, and also there is not much of a bump in the backrest, but then there is this big transmission tunnel which goes all the way in the center, and then you really have to spread your legs and sit. But again, the comfort level is pretty hard that way, but the seats are again leather seats with the white stitching. But if you sit in the normal seats, those are pretty comfortable and easier. But then 3 people, bear in mind, can easily sit in the back also. And then you get the different bits of storage out here, which is this sort of plastic sort of pocket out here, and also door cards which can store about half a liter of water bottle. And then there are 2 cup holders in the back also, along with this handrest. Well, this particular model comes with a 4-cylinder inline petrol engine, and that's a turbocharged, and that produces 250 brake horsepower and 365 Newton meters of torque. And if you ask me, honestly, this feels a little underpowered, and it's actually pretty noisy also, because of the fact that this engine has to work a lot when it has to push this car. The engine noise itself is pretty much inside the cabin. Even while it is idling, you can hear it, that it's a very tiny engine which is trying to rev hard enough to get the vehicle moving. But the different set of options that you get with the car in terms of engine, so there is a P300 model which is a 300 bhp, then there is a V6 version which is the P340, so whichever model number, that signifies the power that it produces, and some 400 Newton meters of torque. And then there is P380 which produces 380 brake horsepower, again 400 Newton meters of torque. And then there is another V8 version which is the SVR Autobiography dynamic version. Now that produces 550 brake horsepower and 680 Newton meters of torque, and that is ridiculous, that amount. I would really like to see how that engine performs in a car this small, although it's not very small, because this car weighs 2.5 tons. And also there is an 8-speed automatic gearbox. All the cars have the standard 8-speed automatic gearbox, and that's pretty fine. I mean, in normal everyday operations, it shifts pretty smooth, it's pretty crisp. it's pretty on point. Even when you're using the paddle shifters, it's pretty good. Switch it on into the sport mode, and then there's slight improvement in terms of the response from the system. The steering becomes a little harder. The response from the engine is pretty smooth. Like the moment it starts going, especially after the essential 2,500 RPM mark, where the turbocharger kicks in, there is slight bit of lag initially, but when it kicks in, that turbocharger, there is like a flood of power, and then this car just lifts off. So the way the transmission on the Velar works is, initially it would give you a 50-50 sort of power distribution, so that you have like a proper traction when you are about to take off. But then whenever there is a demand for, say, traction towards the rear or the front, it can easily shift to 100% power balance. Like, you know, it can easily send 100% in the back or 100% in the front. This car comes with an 82-liter fuel tank capacity, and it averages about 13 kilometers. A car this big, again, it's all possible because of the tiny engine, turbocharged engine that has been provided, and to be giving almost 13 is pretty amazing. Coming to the steering feels pretty light and pretty nimble, and also it's pretty precise, and it's also to do with the fact that it's an electronic steering, so it keeps changing its nature. So but at higher speeds it's pretty stable, and then still you don't get to feel the weight of the steering from the steering system itself. So there is what I call usually is the lack of feedback from the steering system. The turning radius is also pretty good with the Velar. Like, it feels like a very small car which is able to turn like in such a short radius. So the Velar has the air suspensions, and if you ask me, the ride quality is super comfortable out of that, because again the seats are a little on the harder side, but again the ride is so smooth, and you cannot actually feel any road bumps. I mean, hardly. I mean, of course you would notice some of them, but very rarely you would notice the bumps, and all to do with the air suspension. It's also balancing the car pretty well. In fact, the roll also has been reduced fair amount, because, and to be honest, whenever I'm driving this car, it does not feel like an SUV. It doesn't feel like a giant car when you're driving it. And even the seating position is pretty down low because of the car being very low to the ground. So even the driving position is pretty low, and as a result, you would feel like driving a normal car and not like an SUV, which is capable to do like any sort of off-roading stuff. Now, unfortunately, right now the off-roading areas wherever I usually take the cars to has been closed down because of the COVID-19 situation. So whenever they return to normal, I promise you I will get a proper desert review and check this car properly in that. But for now we'll do the road review. So continuing with the other bits, the brakes are fine. They are a little bit on the spongy side. Now, in terms of safety systems, you would get 6 airbags, 2 in the front for the passenger and the driver, and also 2 side airbags and 2 curtain airbags. So that is it. And then there is also the lane assist feature that you get, child isofix mounting points, which you get with this Range Rover Velar, and this is standard. These features, all the safety features that you get, are all standard. And also there is one camera system, but then that camera quality is pretty all right. I mean, though the screens are fantastic, but then the camera quality could have been improved, because it's got a weird sort of angle, and then there is too much of saturation from the camera. Also, there are lots of contrast areas which look pretty black even during the day. So I hope they improve on the camera quality. It also is available in a 360 camera system. But overall, if you ask me, is this car worth buying, I would say yes, because let's be honest, it's a Range Rover, and then the quality that you get is phenomenal, and it still has the fantastic build quality. And again, it can do off-roading, it can do proper off-roading, and you can just take this car anywhere. And also it's a 5-seater along with a lot of space. So I think yes, if you are sort of considering buying a 5-seater SUV, then this is definitely worth spending your money on. This is, by the way, the premium segment that it goes into, so but this is worth it. Anyways, my time with this car is coming to an end, so give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you want to watch more videos, then you can click here, and if you want to subscribe to my channel, click here and do all of that bit. I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye and take care.